Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Kim Strassel here with Monet Ukwe-Barua and Alicia Finley. I want to go a little bit into the reaction, and we do have a clip of that reaction from GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley today talking at the Moms for Liberty convention in Philadelphia.
Can I just say God bless the Supreme Court? They are making a lot of wrongs right. We've seen it. They've made, they've corrected things on religious liberty. We're seeing that they're correcting things on student loans.
So that's certainly the view of conservatives. Not surprisingly, Democrats had the exact opposite view. The White House came out swinging. The president condemned the court again. But it strikes me, Renee, there's something very cynical about that condemnation. What we have here is a president who perverted a program that, by the way, as Alicia mentioned, was designed to help those who served the country. He did it despite acknowledging that he didn't even have the authority. He did it on the eve of an election right before the midterms in a bid to buy votes. And then when the Supreme Court understandably strikes it down on the basis of the clear reading of law, he blames the court for taking away all the goodies. I'm just curious, do you think that's going to fly with the electorate? And what line are Republicans going to take about this in response?
Well, I think that this condemnation of the Supreme Court that we're seeing from President Biden, from Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and from progressives at large was all teed up well before this decision came down. President Biden surely knew when he decided to read this broad forgiveness into the HEROES Act that there was no way that really any sensible court was going to permit it, not to talk of this originalist majority we see with 6 justices on the current Supreme Court. And so they knew that it was very likely that this was going to survive, and they wanted to be able to pin the blame for the voiding of student loan forgiveness on conservatives.
Yeah, one other reaction, which I also found somewhat absurd, but I think is worth noting as just a bit of a sad commentary on our political institutions today. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer put out a tweet after the ruling, which read, quote, "The disappointing and cruel student debt ruling shows the callousness of the mega Republican-controlled Supreme Court." End quote. And just as someone who's studied politics a long time, that just floored me. I mean, here is the court issuing a ruling protecting Congress's ability to make major decisions under the separation of powers. And the head of one of the chambers that therefore benefits the most from this ruling on constitutional grounds condemns the court. And this is just like a huge change from even 15 years ago when it was common for members of Congress to bristle when executive branch employees stepped on their authority, even if the president was of their own party. This modern Democratic Party doesn't seem to care much about the Constitution anymore. But anyway, Alicia, following on that, Schumer went on to say the Biden administration has remaining legal routes to provide broad-based student debt cancellation. They need to use them. I similarly saw Elizabeth Warren, Massachusetts progressive, say on Twitter, quote, "The president has more tools to cancel student debt and he must use them." Alicia, I assume that these are references to some of the other schemes the administration has, including income-based repayment plans. Can you walk us through that?
Right. So these income-based repayment plans, they were first, well, actually, they're many decades old, but Congress enacted them to cap the monthly payments of student loans as a share of their income. The problem came during the Obama administration. Barack Obama unilaterally decided that he could essentially sweeten these plans and reduce the payments even without Congress's authorization. So he reduced the payments for basically all new and prior borrowers to just 10% of the income and forgave the remaining balances after 20 years. Now, the problem is that half of students, as it is, aren't even paying down their principal, right? And so as a result, the student loan balance has exploded, has actually grown more than doubled since the Obama administration to $1.6 trillion. So now what Biden has proposed to do is to actually shrink the payments even more, again, without any congressional authorization, down to 5% of discretionary income, and would forgive payments again after 20 years. Now, his own administration has estimated that this would save the average borrower from a public college about $2,000 a year. So that's about $40,000 over the life of the loans or over the term of their repayments. Now, this will actually be even more generous if you really think about it than the student loan payment or student loan forgiveness that was just struck down. Now, the Penn-Wharton model estimated that this would cost $471 billion. That's on top of the Obama forgiveness, which was $500 billion. So you're looking at basically $1 trillion in loan forgiveness just in these income-based repayment plans that, again, weren't authorized by Congress. And actually, I expect these are not legal plans, no matter what Chuck Schumer says. And I would expect and I would hope that perhaps there would be another legal challenge to these, perhaps by the same plaintiffs. And, Missouri's MOHELA, its loan servicing agency, because it may be hard for our students themselves or anyone else to have standing. But I would hope, again, that this goes right back up to the Supreme Court and gets struck down.
It sounds as though this administration is determined to keep the Supreme Court busy. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Monet. We thank our listeners. We remind you that we are here every weekday. We'll be back on Monday. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. And if you like the show, hit the subscribe button.